I've stopped fighting for the relationships that the other person isn't fighting for. I only want to fight for relationships where we're both fighting for it. Otherwise, like, I'm just running a race by myself.
Welcome back to the Earn Your Happy podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for tuning in. You could have chosen any other show and you actually clicked on mine. So I know that this is such an honor. So I want to make sure that I am gifting you something. Not only with some great information today, who you're going to love this freaking interview. This woman has personally changed my life, which I'll tell you about. But if you go to becomealigned.com, we are giving away one of our courses absolutely for free because we want you back on my email list. I've been writing personal emails every single week, things that are really changing my life, things that I'm learning, things that I'm implementing. This truly is value adds. I'm not just going to write you some fluff. These are things that I am integrating and learning, and I want to share them with you. They're not long. And to do that, all you have to do is you just have to get a free course. That's it. And then you'll be on my email list so I can talk to you every single week. You don't even have to stay on it if you don't like it. But the Align course was something that Chris and I built quite a few years ago, probably about 7 years ago now. And him and I poured our hearts and souls into it and filmed for quite a while. Everything that has shifted our lives, everything that has really worked for us around changing our money mindset, really living into what we believe is our life purpose, and really just all of the different things that we have done to create the success that we've created in our lives. And not just that, but to do it in a way where we're actually happy. And when we're not, there's the tools in here to make sure that you're constantly reassessing in your life, your business, and your relationship. So all you have to do is go to becomealigned.com. You guys, this first retailed for almost $1,000, and we've had thousands of people take this course. So I want to give it to you absolutely for free just for joining my email list. That's all you have to do, and we're going to send it to your inbox. You can literally start it right now. So on today's podcast, we have one of my amazing friends, Christine Hassler. She was also my personal coach for quite a while. And this woman got me through so many blocks, things that were truly stopping me from having the success and the life and the relationships that I wanted, in particular, the relationships in my life with friends and with family. And we did so many things that she talks about today in the podcast that truly broke me through these limiting beliefs and blocks. I mean, I was carrying a lot of shit. And I will tell you, this woman is one of the smartest, most brilliant coaches I have ever met. Her name is Christine Hassler. She's a master coach, a spiritual psychologist, a facilitator, and speaker with 20 years of experience. She's also the best-selling author of the amazing book, Expectation Hangover. And this book is incredible, you guys. You should absolutely go get it. Free yourself from your past, change your present, and get what you really want. She also has a top-rated podcast where she coaches people live, which is so cool. It's called Over It and On With It. And she is promoting her Elementum course, which is so cool because it's an institute that she co-founded, and it's a 7-month coaching certification program whose mission is to empower coaches with a holistic and inclusive framework that can support the whole human experience. And she is truly creating the next wave of coaches who are making a massive impact. So you guys, of course, she's going to talk about that, but she actually talks about the tools that she used on me, that she uses in her practice. These are things that you're going to be able to take from this podcast, and I believe have a big breakthrough right away. So why don't we jump right in so that you can access those now?
Christine, our dear friend, how you doing?
I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
We are so excited to have you on. We were just talking before this about how whenever we can do a podcast with a friend, it just feels like not like a podcast.
Yeah,
I was like,
so easy. It's like hanging out.
And do content.
Yeah, but it makes me miss you more. I want to just beam myself to Wisconsin and hang out on the lake with you today.
Well, I mean, one, you're always invited. Two, I don't think people realize how much fun talk goes on before the actual podcast. And maybe that's like, it's usually too personal. So as you say, maybe that's what we should air. But like, what is it? We've been talking for 18 minutes just playing catch up before this.
But if we aired that, we would have a really, really
good download
podcast.
You know what's funny? Maybe we start there. What we were catching up on for the past 18 minutes is like we feel like part of our life is always in flux, whether it's, hey, I'm a new mom, figuring that out, or not me, you, obviously, or, hey, we're moving and we're figuring that out, or, hey, we're pivoting this business. Is there ever a time when life isn't in flux? Because I think people look at you guys as a couple, and Lorraine and I as a couple, and probably think everything looks great.
Yeah, like it's always dialed in.
But deep down, it's the duck who's smooth on the water and the feet are paddling like a frenzy. What's your take on that?
Oh, gosh. I think for anyone who's awake and aware and like tuned into life, it does feel like things are in flux. And I think collectively, what's happening in the world right now, the world is in a very settled place right now. There's a lot happening, and I think we're all feeling that. So if we go like on the macro level, I think we're all responding to a lot of instability just in the world in general. And then for us, and for a lot of people listening, a lot of us are high achievers, we're entrepreneurs, we're always wanting to learn, we're always wanting to grow, and we have that growth mindset. And when you have that growth mindset and not that fixed mindset, just doing kind of the same thing every day, it isn't really fulfilling. And because we're growing so fast, preferences change. We were talking about how in 2019, Steph and I moved to Austin, and Austin felt super aligned. And we're like, oh, this is where we need to be. And my family's there. And that's where we got pregnant. And then our daughter came, and we're like, oh, this doesn't feel good anymore. Well, shoot, like what does? What does? And that in-between phase can be frustrating, especially for those of us that like answers and like a plan, or at least for me. But my husband and I are both like, well, great. We know this isn't it, but what is it? Mm-hmm. And I mean, the thing that we've had to learn is how to be in that in-between without freaking out. How to like be in the now and make the now as grounding as possible, even though we feel on some aspect we're not grounded.
Let's talk about kind of the moving there for a second, just because for some people listening, they might be like, well, I feel like I'm not in the right spot, but moving just sounds so crazy. And you're attached to these different things.
And wherever you go, there you are, right? You take yourself with.
It's true. What is a perspective for you guys that you have on kind of like uprooting and trying new things on that has made it easier to go and find where you fit?
Well, for us, we always listen to like what's an internal nudge versus thinking that an external move is going to fix a problem that we're having. So right now, it's not like we're not happy or we have a problem and we think moving is going to be the answer. It's more of a, oh man, like, when you walk into a hotel room and just smells off and you're like, I can't stay in this room. Like something happened here. I don't know what, but I got to go. It's that feeling of something's off. So whenever I have I want to change something because something in my life isn't working and maybe this thing will fix it, then I'm reminded of wherever I go, then there I am. Like, I'm not happy. Let me take a trip to Fiji and then I'll be happy. No, probably not. My problems are going to follow me to Fiji. Very different to something needs to change and I don't know what, but I have to listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
So were you referencing the hotel in Greece when we all went there when you met Steph for the first time? Is that the hotel you were just referencing?
So first of all, my hotel wasn't as bad as you made it sound like it was going to be when we were. So backstory, in my single days in between my divorce and my marriage now, I was like living in San Diego, a nomad. I'd come back to LA and Chris and Lori always took me in. always let me stay at your house. I loved staying at your house. I'll never forget that bedroom. You could hear the little water fountain out there. And I loved it. And you kept the AC super cool at night, which was just
we did.
But one day we were sitting around and you were talking about this trip you were taking with Rob and a bunch of other couples to Greece. And Chris, the ultimate enroller, was like, you should come. And I'm like, but I'm single. I don't want to always feel like the third wheel with you guys anyway. Like, I'm just going to be like the ninth wheel with all these couples. Like, no, you should come. And you guys were staying in this fancy hotel and I was looking for another hotel. And we found Hotel Hermes, and Chris lovingly nicknamed it Hotel Herpes.
Yep. Just a couple letters off.
Single girl was staying alone. I'm like, you're going to manifest me getting herpes on this trip. And no, she didn't. Totally fine thing. But it was just a funny nickname. But what was interesting is I had been talking to this guy living in Australia named Steph, who I hadn't met, who I met through a friend, but we hadn't met in person. And Chris was like, you should just invite him. You should just invite him. He's Greek. You should just invite him. And worst thing that happens, like, you hang out with us. I was like, oh, all right. Well, we'll give it a go. And, here we are 5 years later. That was 5 years ago this month.
That was 5 years ago this month?
God.
Yeah. We met July 7th.
Chills.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
here you are, happily married, parents now. Like, how cool is that?
Crazy.
So
Well, y'all were there. You were there.
refresh me. Like right away, was it like, oh, this is my guy, or did it take a little bit, or like, what did that look like?
I mean, I liked him right away.
For anyone who's single and thinks
He was my guy right away.
a certain way.
Yeah, we had been talking for 3 months over WhatsApp before we met in person. So the in-person meeting I was really nervous about, because what if we aren't attracted to each other? What if he smells weird? Like, what if, but at that point in my life, I think I'd taken enough risks to know, like, I'd rather take a risk than have regret, because like, you can't get time back. And I had y'all support, which was great. If I had just flown to Greece alone and was going to meet this guy, I think it would have felt a lot more scary, but I had the safety net, especially of you two, which I'm always grateful for. But yeah, when I opened my hotel room door and we met in person for the first time, it was just like, the way I describe it is it felt like home. When we hugged for the first time, it just felt, it wasn't these fireworks or butterflies, which for me turned out to be a red flag. Like when I felt fireworks with the guy, it was like, oh, this is going to hurt down the road.
Fireworks are going to blow a finger off.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or break my heart into a million pieces.
Yeah.
But it was just like that feeling of, oh, like I can be me with this person. So yeah, that's where it all began.
It's such a cool story, like just kind of demonstrating how far back we all go. And eventually we're going to talk about why I just think you are the realest deal in the world when it comes to in the coaching industry and Steph too. But that's a fun story about how we go way back. But what I'd love to prompt the two of you to talk about is when you were Lori's coach, and Lori was really going through some challenging times. And I watched you create shifts in my wife that, were priceless. Why don't you guys kind of talk through that a little bit?
Oh my God. Well, I'm trying to think about I think I did coach with you before I had you speak at Bliss, or maybe you spoke once and then I coached and then you spoke multiple times after that.
It was in between.
Okay, it was in between. So I think that's what prompted it, is kind of seeing you on stage, because I knew you were an incredible speaker. I knew that you were just like shifting so many other people's lives, and you guys, I used to run something called Bliss Project. We had like 400 to 500 women from all around the world would come in 3 days, personal development, like drop in connection. It was so much fun. But one of the coolest parts for me was getting to listen to all of the incredible speakers. Like I got to be transformed during that weekend. And you were always one of my favorite speakers on one of my favorite days, because I knew that people were going to get the gift of, there's something that you do of just being able to give so much perspective to someone, like actually allowing them to take a pause and like hover above their lives and really look at it from a 30,000 foot view. I feel like that's something you've really done for me, is just bring in all of these different perspectives. For me personally, not only watching you speak and watching people literally transform in front of my eyes, and having so many people on our survey sheets saying that you changed their life, you rocked their world, like that you were their favorite. And I'm like, what about me? No, I'm just kidding. You can be their favorite all day long. That's what the whole event is about. So for me, I was like, wait, I have some things that I think that I would love to work on with you. And, I have some things that deeply were kind of holding me back and affecting me. And I just feel like you helped me work through so many of those things that I still tell these stories. We just told them yesterday around the fire about how you shifted some major, major things for me, even in my family, in the way that I was just experiencing some different things in my family, to the point that I am in such a good place now because of the tools that I have and the way that I'm able to look at it with your help.
Well, you shifted it. I just held the space to do it. You did the work, and it was such an honor to coach you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be your friend and your coach, and to be able to play in both those spaces, because that requires a great deal of maturity and vulnerability. And you were willing to go there. You've always been one of my favorite people to coach, because you have so much awareness and you have so much willingness and you have so much openness. And that's one of the many reasons you are where you are today, not just professionally, but personally, in your family and your marriage and your friendships, is because you were receptive and you were able to go, okay, there's some things here, mostly from my past, that I can't avoid anymore and I need to look at. And I don't believe time heals all wounds. I just don't. It actually just reinforces them. So maybe it heals like a cut on your finger, but in terms of the things that happen to us in childhood, time does not make them go away. And so we have to have the courage and the willingness, which you had, to look at it and go, okay, this is impacting me. I can't change the past, but I can change how I relate to it. And you did that beautifully. And I saw so much shift in you, which is just such an honor, really.
I was just going to say, you're giving Lori so much credit. And of course, it's always doing the work is always a two-way road. But you have a really special gift. And it's something that you've worked really hard to cultivate over the years. I mean, I at least once a month in conversations, whether I'm helping somebody or giving advice or whatever, I bring up the concept of the expectation hangover from your book. I'm telling you, not just a couple of bright spots, but through the years, year after year after year after year, you've made such a big impact in our lives and other high performers that are in our lives. That's kind of why we wanted to have this conversation today, because number one, everybody needs help, right? Like even Tom Brady needed a coach, even though he was the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. So everybody needs help at some point. But number two, I feel like we're getting into a time where it's getting real tough to figure out who's the real deal to turn to for help and who's not.
Yeah, there's a lot of marketing happening.
So how do we decipher that? Like, what are some things we should look for in a legitimate coach that's going to be a good relationship for us and not someone who's just good at marketing?
I think one of the things is when you're like, let's just use social media. Are you drawn to something because of what they're making you think about in terms of what you could have and who you can be? Or are you drawn to them in terms of how you feel when you experience that? So if you're drawn to someone because they make you think about, oh my gosh, I could have this great relationship and I could have this great car and I could make this great money and I could like blah, 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 lose 20 pounds or whatever it is. Or you're drawn to someone because it's like, oh, this resonates with me, or I feel understood, or I feel seen, or I don't know, I just feel at peace. I would pay more attention to how you feel, because there's these sort of aspirational, really great marketers that can sell you an idea. And then there are the people in the world where you just feel them and you just like feel it in your body. And like, no, there's a call, like there's something here for me to learn. And that's always what I've been drawn to. Most of my teachers and people that have made a big difference in my life, no one knows who they are. They don't have social media followings. And you can have a great social media following and still be the real deal. I'm not saying that everyone on social media is a fake and the real deal people are the hermits, living on mountains and in the woods. But most of the teachers I've been drawn to them because either someone I know and trust has had a positive experience with them, or I've experienced something with them and I just feel it in my body and I feel it in my heart.
Okay. So for people listening, I want to know for you personally, in your experience, can you share either a couple of the things that you have learned or something that you can trace back that was like a huge shift for you in using a certain set of tools or hearing something from one of your teachers? What were a couple of those moments for you?
I'll share a little bit more backstory about like my experience as a human on the planet, and then the tools of why the tools were relevant. So for me, there's a lot of things that happened in my childhood. There were several that were really instrumental in forming who I am or who I had to become, because the things that happen to us in childhood actually move us away from who we actually are. And they kind of create this persona of who we think we need to be safe, to be loved, to be validated, to be worthy, to belong, so on and so forth. So one of the things that I experienced as a child was a lot of rejection, not being included in the friend group, girls being mean to me, and I had Christine Club forming. And what that did is it created a lot of shame for me and a belief that something was wrong with me, that I didn't fit in, that I wasn't enough. And when we have a big ouch like that, our survival strategies kick in, because for me, what that hit was the wound of belonging. Our need for belonging, our need for love, and our need for safety. Those are three of our massive core needs. Everything else falls into one of those buckets. Because if we don't belong, think back to like primal days. If you don't belong to a tribe, you die, because the tribe needs each other to survive. So when we feel like we don't belong, it puts us into our fight or flight, freeze or fawn response, that trauma response. And so it's like, what do I need to do to sustain myself? So my survival strategy, which I also call compensatory strategy and expectation hangover, like we compensate for where we feel less than, was to become a massive overachiever. So I got out of my body, because between the bullying and also abuse I experienced as a child, the body wasn't a safe place. So out of the body, into the head, and became a massive overachiever, because that was safe. It's like, if I can be in my mind, disconnected from my emotions, I can just achieve. And the other thing that was happening for me is I was a highly sensitive kid, huge empath, very intuitive, would know things. My intuition is like a claircognizance. I just know things just drop in for me. And I'm also very clairsentient. I feel things through my body. And so I didn't really have any teachers to deal with that. So the other thing that was happening is I was feeling all this stuff and it looked like I was depressed because I just had to kind of shut off as a kid. So also at age 11, I was put on antidepressants. So, and I think I've told this story on your podcast before, so I'll be quick. But so we've got the, I don't belong, nobody likes me. I need to just achieve and do. And I've also got the, something's fundamentally wrong with me. I'm mentally ill. I need to be on medicine the rest of my life. So I had a huge story of there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Which made me very successful. And a lot of high achievers can relate to this because our achievement and our drive is coming from a void. We're desperately trying to fill this void of pain. And it's like, if I can just be somebody, and be successful in the world, then maybe I'll finally feel like I matter and I belong. So that made me very successful, but it also in the process, I pushed a lot down. I mean, between antidepressants and sort of being numb from my feelings and just the survival strategy of going into my head, my emotions I was disconnected from my emotions and I was definitely disconnected from my body. So the tool that helped me the most was emotional release work, which I learned from my first coach, Mona, who I started seeing when I was like 22, I think. And she was so different from psychologists and psychiatrists I'd ever seen. She saw me at her house. She like wore sweatpants. She was just very eccentric. She would sing piano tunes. And she taught me emotional release work. And the first thing she taught me was anger release work. And she said, I remember her saying to me, baby, you're not depressed. You're just angry. I'm like, I'm not angry. Which is the classic thing clients say to me now. And I'm like, you need anger work. They're like, I'm not angry. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. I'm not angry, Mona. She's like, baby, you are angry. You are angry and sad. And it's all in there. Like just a little pile of rocks inside of you. It's just weighing you down. And so she showed me how to do anger release work, which a lot of people confuse anger release work with cathartic release. So maybe you've been to UPW or Tony Robbins event, and Tony Robbins is amazing, great events. But sometimes they do the cathartic, like scream, rah, or you've been to a rage room, or you take boxing classes. And that's a great cathartic release. Like it's a great release of adrenaline and some emotion. But emotional release work is actually attaching the memories and the feelings and the thoughts to the emotional release. So what she did is she gave me a tennis racket, gardening gloves, and a big pillow that had duct tape around it. And she said, I just want you to start hitting that pillow and screaming. And I was so wimpy. I was like, meh, because I was really afraid to use my voice. And she demonstrated from me, and she took that racket and she's like, I'm angry because of that. And she finished the sentence. I'm angry because duh. I'm pissed because duh. Fuck you because duh. And she was using words and things from her life. And then she gave the racket back to me and just the words started to come out and the memories started to come out. And it's not about beating people up or making people wrong. You don't like yell at yourself, but it's about getting the emotion out that never got to be expressed. Because if we think about the teasing and the bullying and stuff, I never could go to those people and be like, I'm so mad at you. Why are you doing this? This really hurts me. I try so hard to be your friend and and I was able to get that out on the pillow. So it's like we have all these things inside of us and anger and resentment that we carry around sometimes for decades. And it manifests as depression, or it manifests as disease, or it manifests as, not being able to make money because we have such a lack of self-worth. So that for me was one of the biggest tools. And ultimately was what empowered me to get off medication. I've been off antidepressants for 15 years at this point, 13, 15 years, something like that. And again, there's nothing against medication. There's a time and a place for it. And some people really need it. But for me, it was more of a crutch than it was something that was really helping me. So that has been the biggest thing, is learning how to release emotions.
We did something similar, you and I. One of the things, and maybe it's sort of the same idea and method, but you had me place a chair, I believe, in front of me and put the particular person who I needed to express emotion to, but I knew the emotion to that person.
Well, yeah, I'm right here, baby. You can say my name.
It was not Chris.
It was not you.
Would not be well received. And so I think that's a really interesting thing when people, I think what I've realized from that was so many of us have these people in our lives that we can't go and say how we feel because they're not emotionally available to be able to receive our emotions. Can you speak a little bit into that? Because I think there's a lot of people who want this like peaceful, happy ending, especially when it's close in their families. And we have this expectation of what our parents, our siblings should look like to us. And that was like some of the biggest things for me that was holding me back.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is the empty chair process. And we can go over that technique as well, because that's my second favorite powerful tool. So, expectations of other people. That's massive expectation hangovers right there, and most of us as kids wished our parents would have been different in some way, shape, or form. And then we often go out and find people just like them to marry or date or go into business with, because we're like, oh, maybe I can have a do-over and maybe it'll be different with this person. And we realize we're in the same patterns. And, one of the things I often say is you don't go to a Chinese restaurant when you want nachos. And so many of our family members, our friends are the Chinese restaurant. And we're like, no, here are the chips. Here's the black beans. Here's the salsa. Here's the guacamole. Just like put it together for me. And they're like, still can't do it. Here's some fried rice. It's like, but I don't want fried rice. I want nachos from you. This is what I got. And you go back and it's still the fried rice over and over and over again. And we so desperately want someone else to change because we can see clearly how easy it would be for them to be different. So we often project how we would deal with something or how we would relate onto another person. It's one of the biggest ways we get in trouble in relationship. Now, I can think of a challenge I'm having right now with someone. And when I think about it from my perspective, it's so clear. But when I get into their shoes and look at it from their perspective, I'm like, oh, they can only see it this way. So that's one of the reasons we get so frustrated, because it's like, I would do this so much differently. Well, you're not them. And they have a whole different set of wounding and a whole different psychology and a whole different perspective. And they're at a different level of consciousness. And that's one of the most challenging things for people on a growth path, for people that have healed a lot and aren't triggered as much, is it's not like you change, you become more of who you actually are. And you're evolving into this like really pure version of yourself, like your most authentic self. And other people are still stuck in their compensatory strategies and their survival masks and their protective patterns. And it's like you start speaking two separate languages. And so what I see so often is people on the growth path, it's like family members, friends, even relationships. It's like a record scratch. There's a vibrational frequency shift where you're just not aligned. And so what's helped me most is acceptance.
Hey y'all, if you didn't know, Earn Your Happy is now a part of the Growth Day Podcast Network. This is so exciting to me because I have been looking for a really good home for the show for, I can't even tell you, years, literally. And now I've finally been able to come together and collaborate with other people who have incredible shows, and I want to share them with you. One of the shows is Motivation with Brendon Burchard. And you guys, if you don't know about the beginning of my career, I literally started with Brendon Burchard's work. It's how I launched one of my very first online courses and membership sites, was because he gives so much advice that you can integrate and implement immediately. And that's what you're going to get on the show. Not just motivation, but you're going to learn exactly how to get your stuff out in the world. And not just that, but Brendon runs in the most incredible group of humans who are really doing the thing out in the world that you want to be doing. So go check it out. Go subscribe to Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I promise you, this is going to be one of those shows that no matter when you tune in, you're going to get value. Like, it's not one of those that you're like, God, I listened for 30 minutes and I didn't get what I wanted. Like, from the beginning, you're going to get something that changes your life or changes your business. So go check it out. Motivation with Brendon Burchard. I know you're going to love it. I'm obsessed.
I got my master's in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. And there, one of the things we learned is acceptance is the first law of spirit. Like, if you want to be a spiritual person, acceptance, which is very different from resignation. Resignation is like, oh, well, my life just sucks and I give up and everybody else has it better. Acceptance is, this is a challenging situation. As Byron Katie says, I'm not going to fight with reality. How do I want to relate to it? So when we can accept those people, not expect them to change, and have boundaries that we not only put up, but enforce, because that's the tricky thing, is we can put a boundary in, but then we actually need to enforce it. And the toughest thing about boundaries is that we want people to just be like, oh, that boundary is so healthy. I totally respect that. And I respect you and I understand. But when we put up boundaries with people, we're changing the dynamic, we're changing the game. And so often they'll get upset and they'll push. And so we have to hold that. But the biggest thing is just not expecting people to change. If they do, great, awesome, great surprise, but not expecting people to change. And for me, I've stopped fighting for the relationships that the other person isn't fighting for. I only want to fight for relationships where we're both fighting for it. Otherwise, like, I'm just running a race by myself, So it's just that acceptance and knowing that some people just aren't our people. And that's okay. It doesn't make them bad. They just aren't our people.
I love this. It makes me think of so many different things. Like even when you brought up, you're not going to get nachos at a Chinese food restaurant. Even when I first met Chris, I was, and I know you can relate to
the nachos or the fried rice.
I know you can relate to this even with Steph, but it's like in my other relationships, when I first met Chris, I was like, oh, he's not my type, because my type was like, I needed the high highs and the low lows. And it wasn't even about what he looked like or anything. It was literally like, oh, he's not my type, because energetically,
I guess I was just the mediums.
I kept going for this,
which is healthy.
Yes, exactly. I was like, well, I want this consistent, amazing, beautiful relationship, except I kept looking at the Chinese restaurant for the same thing over and over,
stomach wrenching,
wishing that he was, wishing that they were something else. Yeah. And I think of this, Christine, even in like my female friendships, when I used to really struggle, I was wanting to connect with all of the women who were just like me. Well, they all typically had a lot of the same issues I did. So we'd keep bumping into these walls where we couldn't necessarily drop in deep together or get vulnerable, because I was like, oh, we're connecting over here on these surface level things. This feels good. And then all of a sudden the relationship doesn't feel good, because I just kept going after the same thing over and over because it felt comfortable, looking for that deep connection, never willing to get uncomfortable.
I want to kind of talk about the different methods that you mentioned. You said the empty chair method. I forgot what the other one, what did you call the other one?
I have different names for it. An expectation hangover, I call it the temper tantrum technique, because children are so good at releasing and regulating emotions. They're not interrupted. If you watch a child have a temper tantrum, they get upset, they peak, they get really angry, they're crying. It's like, you think, oh my gosh, their eyeball's going to come out of their head. And then if just held in a loving space, they start to regulate and they come back down and they start to go, which is them regulating themselves. And then they're done. And the emotion, it's just a wave that comes through. And that kind of emotional release, we generally don't have, because emotions aren't safe, or even with ourselves, we're scared of emotion, or emotion comes up and then we start to judge it. I shouldn't be so sad. I'm pathetic right now, or start judging the person. And as soon as we're in judgment, we're out of the emotional body and we're into our head, and the wave stops. Because for emotional release to happen, we have to be in an energy of compassion. So imagine a child having a temper tantrum and the mother going, that's really stupid. Your face looks funny when you cry. That is such a high pitched anger tone. Oh my God, you're getting upset over that. That's really, really stupid. When are you going to be done with this? I have stuff to do. The child isn't going to feel safe. And that's often how we are with our own emotions. There's this commentary, or we go into so much fear about, I'm going to drown in my sadness. This anger is uncontrollable. And we just start making it mean something versus actually being able to move it. So it's something I've always taught in my practices. It's something that at my women's retreat, you've never been to my women's retreat, have you, Laura? You haven't, have you?
No. And I would love to go anytime, but now I'm like, oh my gosh,
well, it's in October, second weekend in October in San Diego. So not too far. But I do a whole half day of this beautiful emotional release process, which just like, it takes what would take almost 10 years of therapy to get through. And it's just amazing. We used to take, before our numbers got really big at the retreat, we used to take before and after pictures of people before the emotional release work and after. And we did it because people would be shocked. They're like, did I just have a facelift? My God. Like, just because we hold so much in our emotions. And, we're going to talk about Elementum, the coaching institute that I've co-founded, and the emotional release work is a big piece of it, because what I've found is missing in a lot of coaching is it's very mental. And there's a lot of mindset work. And for me, that wouldn't have worked. It might have worked in terms of like gotten me to achieve more, but it wouldn't have gotten me off antidepressants. It wouldn't have had my heart open the way it was. It wouldn't have gotten me back in my body. Like, I really needed the somatic work. When we talk about somatic work, soma means body. We're not just a mind. We're so much our body, and so much of our subconscious mind is connected to our body. So that emotional release work is so important. And the empty chair process, so that's something that I've learned from a variety of teachers. There's been many forms that originates from a therapy called Gestalt therapy. And then there's this other thing called internal family systems. Again, this is all stuff we teach in our coaching program. But it's basically, the way to simplify it is you set up 2 chairs and you put yourself in one chair and you imagine that a part of you or someone else is in the other chair. So you could do it with like your 8-year-old self. You could do it with your mother. You could do it with your higher self. You could do it with God if you wanted to. And you close your eyes and you center yourself and you just start talking to this part. So let's say I wanted to talk to my 10-year-old girl who was really scared and felt really alone. I close my eyes. I'd imagine her. I'd invite that 10-year-old forward. And with my eyes closed, I'd switch to the other chair and speak as my 10-year-old in present tense. Like I wouldn't be like, I remember when I was 10 to that. Like I am 10 and this is what I'm feeling. And you just go back and forth between the chairs. And again, you can do it with another person. And so much can come from that. And it's really a powerful, in so many ways, spiritual process. And I'll tell one quick story to demonstrate it. So I was leading a retreat in Costa Rica and we were doing this process. And a woman was doing it with her mother who had passed when she was a teenager. And it was a really big wound for her, understandably so. You know, being a teenage girl and losing your mom at that pivotal time. I mean, losing a parent at any time is just such a life-changing event. So she was sitting in one chair and she was representing her mom in the other chair. And she was going back and forth and she was channeling these beautiful things that her mom was saying. And again, you don't have to be particularly spiritual or woo-woo or ever have done a yoga class in your life to do this process. You can be a regular old person and all you need is 2 chairs or a bed in a chair or 2 pillows on the floor. Anyway, she was doing this process and she came back and she was herself and she had her eyes closed and she said, Mom, I just need a sign that you're still with me. I just need a sign. And she had her eyes closed. And when she said that, all the lights went out in the yoga shala that we were in. Everything went out. As soon as she said, I just need a sign that you're with me, the lights went out. And we all went, we all gasped. And she had her eyes closed and she didn't know what had happened. And I told her what had happened and she just started crying and she just really felt the presence of her mom. And she said something like, you're with me. I know you'll always be with me. And the lights went back on.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And that's one of my favorite stories because it's so profound, but there's been so many stories like that. And when we're doing it with a part of ourselves, it's like we're giving that younger part. Like when I did that with my, middle school age girl, it gave her the opportunity to like speak to the feelings and the thoughts that she never got to speak to and have a voice. And so much of the pain we carry around is because we've never been able to speak about it, And I don't believe in reliving memories and reliving trauma. I think that can do more harm than good. So I don't recommend it to anyone I'm training and I don't do it in my practice. However, I do believe that, everything is stored in our subconscious mind and going back and healing with love is how we heal. So going back to a time where we felt traumatized or we felt alone and saying, I'm here. The big me is here. The compassionate me is here. What do you need to feel? What do you need to say? It's not about reliving the memories and this is what's happening and da-da-da-da. It's not about that. It's about, I feel scared. I feel hurt. I don't know what to do. And then the older self going, I hear you. Anything else? What else? Anything you need to feel, anything you need to say. And helping that part, because it's like the hurt parts of us, they almost get fragmented because they don't get to actually feel and express and be held for what they're going through. So we just kind of get fragmented. And that's why so many of us get triggered in our life. And you're triggered. There's a variety of ways to know, but one of the main ways you're triggered is if your response, either internally or externally, doesn't match the severity of the situation. So someone says something to you that, isn't super nice, but isn't the end of the world. And you're just like at a 10, you're mad, you're hurt, they're wrong. No one likes you. Like your reaction's way up here when really it was just kind of a comment in passing. That's, you're triggered. Your rejection wound has been triggered in that moment. And so we know we're starting to heal and outgrow things when the same things used to trigger us. I'll wrap this up just by sharing this one thing. So for me, my social anxiety and feeling alone, sometimes remnants of it will come up and I'll be like, oh man, that whole thing of how we're never done. It's really true. But for the most part, I have great friendships. I don't have a lot of social anxiety when I go into things. I feel like I belong. I feel like I have people and friends that I can really count on. I'm good at making friends and keeping friends. And I don't get triggered if I feel like for some reason I've been left out of something. I'm like, okay, well, that's not like, I'm not going to take that personally. That's how we know we've actually completed something and resolved something. So again, it's not the time, it's actually doing the work and giving those fragmented parts of us an opportunity to come back and become whole. Does that make sense?
No, it makes great sense. And the reason I was bringing up and asking about these different methods, I mean, look how much you just rattled off, right? Look at the depth of that knowledge. I asked about it because, and I might ruffle some feathers here, but I mean well when I say this. I feel like we live in a time where a lot of good-hearted people want to coach people, but they don't have the tools or the knowledge or the practices yet that you were just rattling off. It's like me. Like if I see someone stranded on the side of the road, I want to help them by fixing their car, but I don't know shit about their carburetor. I don't know anything about their fuel injection or their ECU chip or anything else, right? So I might show up, put on my overalls and say, hey, you know what? I can fix this. I think I know what to do. Just pay me X number of dollars and I'll give my best. I'm not trying to scam the guy who's stranded on the side of the road. I really want to help them. But if we're being honest, I don't have the tools. And I think we live in a world right now where good-hearted people are calling themselves a coach. They're charging for it, but they don't have these tools yet. And that's why you guys founded Elementum. And not just, I really want to point out who's behind this. So it's you and your husband, Steph. I just sent Steph another client, was it last week, referral, because like these are people that I know. You create a massive shift in people. But then also, or Lexi and Preston, like these are 4 superstars that create real change in people. Why'd you guys, a leading question, but why is it that you guys founded Elementum? And does it have to do with kind of the epidemic that I was just talking about?
Yeah. So the stories, and this happened in 2018 too, the end of 2018. It was a big year. We had gone up to see Alexi and Preston, and they were, for them to meet Steph. And they'd actually met Steph in Perth years ago at an event. So they met him before I did, which was crazy. And we were talking about how the coaching industry was growing so rapidly and it wasn't regulated. And we believe in the coaching industry. And especially me, I started coaching in 2004 when people didn't even know what a coach is. When I said I was a coach, they asked me what sport I coached. And I was like, do I look like an athlete? Like, really? Do I look like I coach soccer? I mean, come on. So it was such a new industry, but it's just grown. I mean, it's going to be $1 trillion industry by the time, like by 2025. So what we were talking about is how do we keep the integrity of the coaching industry? Because somebody has a transformational experience and they think they can be a coach because they've like helped themselves over a hurdle. They left a job and started something they knew, or they got through a divorce, or they're like, I should coach people, because they have an inspirational story. And maybe you should. And you should get some really good training before you do it. Because I've seen so many times that people have, for lack of a better word, been harmed by a coach because the coach didn't know how to hold their emotion or their trauma. The coach took them to places in their memory or their subconscious that neither one of them expected to go. And then the coach didn't know what to do. Or the coach focused too much on mindset and goal setting when actually past stuff needed to be cleaned up. Or the coach was so invested in fixing, putting on their overalls and fixing that the client felt broken. And there's been so many there have been people that have come to me to get coaching where I've had to clean up stuff other coaches have done, either things that they've said, things that they've done. I had one person say, like, I felt like the coach was my teacher, and if I didn't do my homework, I was in trouble. I was like, that's not the dynamic that you really want to be in. And so we just saw this booming industry that wasn't regulated and that wasn't really pumping out a lot of well-armed coaches. And so we thought, okay, we need to start an institute. Now, we actually didn't start it till we're going into our 3rd year. So end of 2020, beginning of 2021, because they got pregnant with twins. We got married and we got pregnant. Like there were all these babies and marriages that happened. We got a little distracted. They have 4 kids. We just have 1. But there's just a lot that happened. And then COVID happened. And all of a sudden, everyone was a coach. Everyone wanted to work from home. Everyone had a wake-up call with COVID. And it just boomed even more. And so we're like, okay, we have got to do it. And I'm at the point in my career where I really am in legacy building. Like I've built my brand. I'm not saying I'm done in any way, but my need to build, or my desire to build me is just really dwindled, especially after having a child. It's more about how can I pass on the wisdom? Because I feel like I have been trained by some of the best in the world. And I want to be able to pass that on. And so I really want to train other coaches, and I love teaching. We can look back. Our childhood has so many clues. My two favorite things to play as a child were teacher and bank. So I'm an entrepreneur who teaches. I love bank. I'd get the tennis ball jars and I'd make the chute through the laundry chute. And I had my little Monopoly money in my tray.
That's amazing.
Put my Lee press-on nails on and be like the little,
that's amazing.
Little 80s banker. But I love teaching, and I love being able to teach coaches how to be great coaches, because the other thing that we hear so much in the coaching industry, especially by the people who probably are going to be really good coaches, is the who am I story, the imposter syndrome story. The people that are like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go build a social media following. I'm going to build a funnel, and I'm going to just, make so much money. Those are the people I'm concerned about, because I'm like, that's a little too much arrogance for me. Like, get really dig deep in where you are and get really trained up, and then go out and share. Because the other thing that I've seen with the coaching industry, and I'm sure y'all have seen it too, is there's a lot of people claiming how much money you can make as a coach, and how you can be in Bali drinking your smoothie and like leading a retreat and making millions of dollars. And the lifestyle that's been portrayed for coaching is very alluring. It's very alluring. And what I think has been missed is, but what makes a really great coach? Yes, it's awesome to work from wherever you love and have this great lifestyle, but like, how are you actually impacting people? Like, how are you actually supporting people and transforming their lives? And so that's why Elementum was created, is because we are so passionate about eliminating imposter syndrome for current coaches and coaches, people who want to be coaches, because you are so knowledgeable and you are so embodied. It's like, Lori, what's something that you do so easily that you totally trust yourself to do? Just comes naturally.
Connect with almost anyone.
Connect with almost anyone. Has that always been the case your whole entire life?
I don't think so.
Yeah. You've gotten good at it because you've gotten practice at it. You've gotten tools, and you've worked through a lot of your own stuff. So it's a lot easier for you to connect with anyone. And that's what we want to do for coaches, is like, you don't need to have imposter syndrome, and you don't need to worry about confidence as a coach, because you're going to be so well trained and so embodied that you know what you have to offer. And the other thing that we reframe at Elementum is we're not in the business of fixing people at all. We're in not even the business, we're in the mission of helping people really remember who they are and providing a safe space for people to remember who they are and find their own internal GPS and help hold a space for them to work through things that they've never been able to work through. And our coaches also have the integrity of, like, if they don't think that a client is the right fit, they share that. We don't train coaches that are in the like, let me just aggregate as many people as I possibly can and making as much money as I possibly can. We really are about embodied coaches. So, I'll say one more thing about it, and you can ask me questions. I'm super passionate about it, as you can see.
Love it.
One thing Mona said to me, so this was back in 2005 when my first book came out. And there's a producer on Oprah that reached out. And I was close to maybe being on Oprah to go talk about the quarter life crisis, because that was what my first book was about. It was about the 20-something, 20 everything in women and what was happening in our 20s. And I went to Mona and I'm like, I'm so excited I could possibly be on Oprah. And she's like, no, you're not ready. I was like, it's Oprah. She's like, I don't care. You're not ready. If they ask you, say no. I'm like, I'm not saying no. And thank God the universe solved that for me. And like, they didn't have me on the show, but she was right. I'd been coaching for maybe 2 years. I wasn't embodied at the time. If I had been, and all of that focus and attention had come on me, I don't know where I'd be right now. I may be, who knows, I may be more famous, but internally, I don't think I'd be as grounded because back then I had a lot of peer. I had so much knowledge and I could help people with my knowledge, but I hadn't yet totally embodied it. I was in the process of embodying it. And so again, we want to train coaches that are in it for the long haul, that aren't in it because, oh, this could be a great way to make money, or, oh, I had this great transition and now I'm going to coach people, or, oh, this could be like a hobby. This is like, no, this is actually my calling and this is what I'm here to do. And I want to be excellent at it. Those are the people that we train.
I love that you're teaching the craft and the tools not just the business of coaching, right?
No, you can't get the business. We have a 3-month business training where we train you how to do online events, be an expert, referral-based business, social media, like all the different ways. It's not a one size fits all, but you can't get access to that until you graduate from the training.
And that's what I love about you guys. Like, don't make somebody dangerous until you know that they've got all the safety tools in place.
Exactly. And for me, when I first started coaching, I went and got my master's degree in spiritual psychology and started doing somatic training and all kinds of other things. Cause I was like, I can't support people unless I know how to deal with their past. I can't support people unless I know how to deal with their emotions. I can't support people unless I know what to do when someone's in a trauma response. Like, I can't just change the subject and be like, oh, everything happens for a reason. And what did you learn from that? Oh, it made you stronger. Your abuse made you stronger. It made you resilient. That just reinforces the compensatory strategy that I have to be strong and I have to push down all my emotions. But that's what a lot of coaches do. And so we just want to give coaches all the tools they need for their own self, for their own life, because I am my own best advertisement. I walking the talk and being my own best client has done more for my business than any course I've done or any social media strategy or any Facebook ad or anything like that. It's just really embodying the work. And that's what makes people want to work with you, from my perspective anyway.
I couldn't agree more. And I think word of mouth is the most powerful and the most legitimate marketing that exists, right? There's all sorts of forms of marketing, but I think word of mouth, when somebody actually has a transformation when they work with you, and I mean like a client or somebody who goes to Elementum Institute, when people leave and say, oh, I got what I needed, or I no longer feel like a liability, or I now feel ready to do this. That type of word of mouth is the marketing that says this is the real deal or not. Can you share a success story or two of somebody who attended the Institute and their whole business, their whole life changed?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. We have a lot on our website too. But I can think of one woman who wanted to leave her corporate job for years, close to a decade, I'd say, and wanted to coach, but just moonlighted and just wouldn't go all in. And Elementum gave her the confidence to be like, I can do this. I can really do this. Because part of Elementum is you have to get a certain number of coaching hours as part of the curriculum. You have to pass quizzes. You have to submit videos of you coaching. You have to come on calls with the master coaches, me, Steph, Alexi, and Preston, show us your coaching. And for a lot of people, that's intimidating. But for me, that builds so much confidence because seasoned coaches are saying, yep, you got it. Or, okay, tweak this. Or why did you do this way? And so it just makes great coaches and it gives you so much confidence. So for this person in particular, the confidence piece was missing. Like, she loved coaching, but she wasn't completely sure she was super good at it. That's what was stopping her. She didn't even really realize that was stopping her. And all the practice she got in Elementum and all the feedback she got, because we have the master coaches and then we have faculty, and every faculty member that grades and assesses and gives feedback to students is a grad of Elementum, and they were handpicked by us because they were star students. So even the faculty are live and breathe Elementum and our philosophies. So by going through the program, she got that confidence. And a month before she even graduated, she quit. And within a month of quitting her job, she had a full practice and was making more monthly than she was at her job because she finally clicked for her of I'm good at this. And that's what stops so many people. They want it and they enjoy it, but they just don't have the confidence.
Yes.
And so that's been one success story. And then I can think of another woman who lives in Europe who really wanted to build her speaking and had done TEDx and a lot of other things, but it wasn't totally where she wanted it to be. But she just recently did another TEDx talk. I think it was TEDx or it was something in Europe. And one thing about Elementum is we really talk about the body, and we do somatic work and embodiment work and trauma work. So it's not just head. And she did another talk, but she really was able to come from her heart and come from her embodiment. And she didn't experience anxiety like she had at future talks because so much had moved and cleared in Elementum. And she is still getting emails from people about her talk. It's turned into clients. They've asked her to speak again. She was bombarded after she got on stage. And I can think of so many more success stories. And I gave the example of 2 women. Elementum is open to all people. We have a lot of men that come to the program as well. But those are just 2 that come to mind. But the biggest thing we hear from graduates is the confidence piece, but also that their lives have changed. Because although we're teaching, the primary goal is to train coaches and to give the tools, but you're going through it as the client. In order to learn these tools, you have to use them on yourself. So I can think of one couple who went through Elementum last year and were going to get divorced. And he just re-proposed to her and they're having a whole
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I was just thinking that as you were talking about this, I'm like, God, even if you're not a coach and you're a leader of anyone sort, like you can probably save a whole lot of money on fractional HR.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
By doing this yourself.
We have so many people that don't want to build a business as a coach, but are leaders and want the communication skills and want the relational skills and want to just grow. And they're so glad that they did it, you know, because it just gives you like something we teach in Elementum. Another thing we teach is nonviolent communication, which is every leader should know. And every person in a relationship should know that, you know, and we teach NLP, we teach internal family systems, we teach inner child work, emotional release work, somatic work, breath work, trauma release work. I mean, you can go on our website and see the curriculum is very, very extensive. It's a 7-month program. It's rigorous. We wanted it to be rigorous because we're not training people how to cook hamburgers. Like this is people's lives. You can't be a coach in a weekend course. Or I don't even think you can train in an online course where there isn't interaction. And you're not being supervised and you're not being watched and no one's, you know, to be a therapist, you have to have 3,000 supervised hours in addition to years of schooling before you can even see a client without supervision. You know, and the coaching industry is like, call myself coach. I don't need any regulation. I don't need any training. I can just call myself a coach and charge people thousands of dollars. And to me, that's just not okay.
Well, I would add to that, you know, you talked about the confidence a lot of these people got in the tools. I would say it helps to eliminate liability. When you go through an institute like this, because of what you're learning, it eliminates so much liability that you don't even maybe realize that you're liable for when you're doing things the wrong way.
Well, and you have a community. Like I can think Steph had a call with you last week. And after he got off the phone, he was jazzed. And he was like, oh, every time I talk to Chris, it's like light bulbs go off. And we're so grateful for that. And it's like we have people we can call when we're stuck. And in the coaching industry, if you're trying to do it solo and you're just trying to piece together a bunch of online stuff and you don't have a community that you can go to and ask questions and you don't have people like, I am 20 years deep in the coaching profession. Like if you like are stuck on the side of a road as a coach, I can put on my overalls and I know I can help you. If your car is broken, I'm of no help. You can use my phone, but that's about it. But I know like that is one area I'm super confident in. And to have access to people that are so far down the road that are accessible and that you can ask questions to, because the other thing as grads is we have quarterly calls for our grads where they can come on with one of us. They're 90-minute calls. And you can ask us any question. It can be about your business, it can be about your life. So we have ongoing community. They also have lifetime access to the curriculum that we're constantly updating. We also are going to do a live event for all our grads. So we're really, because the other thing I think the coaching industry is missing is the community and the in-person aspect, because so much stuff has gone online. And so Elementum is really a family too. And we have that ongoing support. And we are going to have continuing education requirements. There's certain things you have to do to keep up your coaching certification. So when people ask, are we accredited? The accreditation thing is tricky because, again, it's like, it's not that super regulated into the system. So we're working on seeing if we can be continuing education for something like ICF. But right now, Elementum isn't an accredited thing. But let me tell you this. I have been a successful coach for 20 years. I have lots of certifications and trainings. I have a master's degree, 2 master's degrees, none of which are accredited. So it's sort of like I worked my ass off to have a super high GPA in college. Did any job ever ask me what my GPA was? Nope. Did anybody ever care? Nope. So this whole like, is it accredited thing? If you're a weapon of a coach, no one's going to ask you if you went to, if you're certified from a place that is accredited. No one's going to ask, I promise you. So whether it's Elementum or otherwise, get trained by a place where you are going to be like, you're going to be so held to the fire in a really loving way that you know you're going to be the best. Don't do something that's easy because you won't be a great coach.
Yeah, you guys are doing it right. The fact that it's 7 months long, the fact that they have to test through it, have to send in, same way when you're becoming a therapist, the supervised sessions, they have to send in sessions and get reviews. I'm just so grateful that there's humans like you that are actually making people do it the right way because this can be the world's greatest profession that helps people, or it could be a damaging one that accidentally harms people. And we got to make it one that continues to help people.
Yeah. And 7 months may seem like a long time to people, but you're taking 70 years of our collective experience and you're aggregating it all into one space. And like I said, it's rigorous, it's intense, but you'd have to duct tape this together for a lot more money and it would take a lot more time, where we just took the best of the best and went, this is your toolbox, this is what you need. And I still learn stuff. I still want more training. I still want to learn and grow. And that should be the mentality of a coach. But we can guarantee wherever you are, we had coaches that are just starting, and we've had coaches that have been successful coaches for decades. And I love that. I love when coaches that have been, successful coaches for a while are like, you know what, I'm going to do it because I know I can still learn. And that to me is what makes a great coach, is knowing that, yes, you're a teacher, but you're always a student as well. And so we have that. We're very much a growth mentality.
I love that.
That's what I love. The four of you together, especially just, we were chatting before this about, we've probably spent over $1 million on all of the different educations and methods and all of the hours and the years collectively. You said like 70 years of personal development that you are getting, that you'd have to travel all over the world and go with all of these different teachers that you've sought out to find these different methods. And that's what I really love about this. And not only some of the things all of the things that you mentioned today, but something that really hit for me is how you were talking about, so much of what you teach as well is about longevity of the coaching industry, because you teach about boundaries and energetics and coaching hygiene and burnout and all of these things that are really important that people aren't talking about. Because I know that even when I did coaching for a brief amount of time, I was so burnt out. I didn't know any of that stuff before I did it. And I was like, this is impossible. I'll never be able to do this. So if you want to do this long-term and you want to feel confident about it and you want to feel good, I feel like you guys are covering everything that will come up.
Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned the almost $1 million that you guys have spent, to really get where you are today. And I know those are uncomfortable investments along the way sometimes. We wanted to try and make Elementum as comfortable as possible for somebody that might be like, yep, that's what I need. And so you guys were kind enough to let us kind of arrange a $2,500 off credit, if you will, towards the Institute. How did they get that?
So if they go to elementumcoachinginstitute.com/happy, maybe you can, Elementum Coaching Institute is a mouthful, so maybe you can put that link in the show notes /happy, or if they apply to Elementum and just mention this podcast or either one of you or use the word happy, we will honor that $2,500 off. I think you both know Jill. Esplin.
Yep, love her.
So she does all our enrollment and sales. So you'll be interacting with her if you have any questions. But yeah, we really want to make this, you guys have been friends for, it feels like lifetimes. And my whole philosophy on money and training is I have spent so much more on my training than like anything else in my life. Truly, truly, truly. My health and my training. And that is the best ROI ever. It is the best ROI ever. And so Elementum is a stretch in terms of like, we don't want it to be a no-brainer for people. We want people to be like, I'm going to think about this. But it's also like what you'd have to spend to get everything you're getting, I would say is at least 5 times more. And with the discount, even, more than that. So it's just such a great investment. And, the other thing to start thinking about as a coach is, how are you setting up your business? What are your write-offs? Like, you've got to start thinking, you have to have more of a business mindset if you're going to go into the coaching mentality, not be like, oh my gosh, I can't spend that. And we think Elementum is very reasonably priced for what you get. It is very reasonable. But it's not going in with that contraction and going in like, no, this is an investment in my future. This is an investment I can count on. Like, you are a much better investment than any other thing you could spend money on.
You know what I always think about with that real quick too is just, what are you expecting your people to invest in themselves for that transformation? Like, you have to show the universe and yourself,
you're willing to do the same,
and the world that you are willing to do the same. And I think that single action is what has changed Chris and I's life, is by us showing up and going, hey, if we expect people to do this, we have to do it.
Right.
It's part of being legit. It's part of being authentic. It's funny because the investment does a few things at once when you make the investment. Number one, it improves your skill set. Number two, it reduces liability. People just don't understand the liability that they're operating under when they're doing things wrong. It can be unfortunate, life changing in the wrong way. So it reduces liability, but at the same time, it gives you that tax write-off, right? And you have to be demonstrating to yourself and to the people around you and to the universe that you are willing to continue growing into your craft and that you're willing to continue improving into your craft, not relying on what you've already done and hoping it's good enough in a changing world.
I'm so glad you brought up the liability. I want to speak to the community and having the support and mentors as well. So we had a situation last year where one of our coaches had a client that confessed something that was pretty dramatic. And she came to us and we knew what to do with it and we knew how to report it. Like, it was a pretty severe thing. And that involved a child. And I just think of what could have happened if she was just a coach on her own and didn't have mentors and didn't have people she could have gone to and didn't know what to do in that situation. Like, a child could have really been hurt. Wow. And so that's why the liability thing, I'm so glad you brought up, because the coaching industry is beautiful. And there are times when things happen that are crunchy and hard and scary and you don't know what to do. And you need mentors and you need a team and you need like a safety net of people you can go to when you're in a hairy situation. You know, Mona was that for me when I first started, and I'm so glad I had that. And it can be anything from something dramatic, like the example I gave, to like, I'm really stuck with a client and I don't know what to do. Yeah. You know, so many coaches don't have that. And then they think they're not a good coach and their confidence affects them. And then their coaching business goes away. So there's so many ripple effects.
Again, thank you for, trying to protect people by working and hard to give that discounted $2,500 to the people that we care about, right? That means the world that you're trying to make it accessible. Would you give that website one more time? How do they go there?
Yes, it's Elementum Coaching Institute.com/happy. And Elementum is spelled Elementum. It's actually a Greek word. What the reason for Elementum is we give you the elements you need to have momentum as a coach. So thus Elementum. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up on Instagram. I'm Christine Hassler. And if you want a dose of coaching, so my podcast is Over It and On With It. And every Wednesday I air an unscripted, unedited coaching session with someone that I've never met. And so if you want to hear how I coach, and there's also an episode I did with Alexi, one of the co-founders, where we talk about Elementum. You can find all of that at the Over and On With It podcast as well if you want to do a little more detective work.
That's awesome. You're the best. We'll put all that in show notes for sure. So like literally just go to the show notes, click on the link and you'll go to the right place. Thank you so freaking much. One, just for being such a good friend over all the years, but two, for demonstrating the right way to do things in life for good-hearted people that mean well, that need more guidance. We need more, let's call them lighthouses like you.
So grateful for you. I always refer back to you. I feel like, I don't know, maybe weekly. It's very possible because it was huge moments for me that lifted. I just feel like so many people right now are maybe not achieving what they want, or maybe they are and they're not feeling good about it. Or you're like, maybe you're just in a place where you're not feeling aligned or something's off, like we were talking about in the beginning. And I just think that this, either whether it's for them or whether they want to help people break through, is so much freedom, like into your next level, and so much freedom into other people's next level, and just richness of, I know that the gift that you've given me is just like a deeper richness of connection with my life, myself, and all the people in it. So you guys definitely go. I know you already got so much value from this podcast. So either go listen again, shout out Christine, let her know all of the value that she gave to you, because it's so much fun to hear the takeaways for our guests. But definitely go check out the link and use code HAPPY and let us know. Let us know if you do it.
And thank you both so much. I so appreciate all the ways, personally and professionally, you've supported and shown up for me. And you talk about embodiment. You two walk the talk. I love the way you live life and the way you inspire people and just the way you're so real. And I always just have such a blast with you guys too. And that's the other thing I just want to say is, like, we have a lot of fun in Elementum too. Like, coaching is a serious thing, but it's also so much fun. It's so much fun. It really, really is. It's just to be in the world of like awakening and transformation and consciousness and helping people get free. Like you said, Lori, like that's what it's about. Just that ultimate freedom to just be yourself and be fully expressed. And that's what it's about.
Oh, so good. Well, thank you so much again. And you guys definitely go check out that link. And until next time, earn your happy. And
thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Love and appreciate y'all.
Bye, guys. Hey, do you know what the big secret is this year? And it shouldn't be a secret because this should be your biggest focus. It is building your community. I am always working on building and nurturing my community, and everyone is talking about the power of community. Without an online community, you just cannot grow organically or create a real movement, which is what I know that we're all after. And you can build trust or monetize your audience. When you get community right, not only does your audience grow faster, but so do your sales. But where's everybody going to be managing their communities these days? And a lot of online entrepreneurs and thought leaders are turning to Circle.so. Circle is an all-in-one community platform. It lets you host content and create discussions, live streams, group chats, and memberships all under your own brand. And what's so cool about Circle.so is that you don't even need a website or Facebook group. Instead, Circle lets you build your own community site where you can host content and manage your members. You can even create locked and unlocked content spaces, groups, and classes. How freaking cool is that? You can put your content behind a paywall too, and you can charge different amounts of money for different spaces on your community site. Circle.so is famously easy to use, and it has a free 14-day trial for you, so you can go check it out, see if you like it, see if you love all the options. Just go to Circle.so. Go check it out right now, you guys. Imagine being able to manage your community, start group chats and live classes, and accept payments all in one place. Kind of mind-blowing since this is usually spread all over the place. You have to log into so many different things. If this is the year to capture, organize, and monetize your community, head over to Circle.so. You can get a free trial and start building your online community right now. Just go to Circle.so. You guys, you get the 14-day free trial. So just go and see if it's for you. It's going to streamline everything and make your life so much easier. It's so freaking cool. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. And I want to make sure that you have my phone number, and I'm not kidding. Did you know that I have a community text number? For real. My phone number is 310-496-8363. This goes directly to my phone. All you have to do is text the word daily to 310-496-8363. And I literally text you every single day, Monday through Friday. I actually just got done 30 seconds ago texting a bunch of people back, and I talk to you all of the time. You guys, people always ask me how I got my community text number and how it works. Well, all you have to do is you can just go to community.com and get your own. Community makes it easy to get a phone number that you can use to build your audience using text. People just text you at your number and they're added to your group. Then you can text them out audios, video links, anything you want. You guys, I text out happy birthday videos. I love to send podcast links, thoughts about life, book recommendations, different events that I'm doing in the local area. Texting gets me out of the noise of social media and directly into your hand. And now you can start texting your people too. Just go to community.com to get your phone number. They give you a 10-digit real phone number, not those weird short codes that look like spam, but it's more than a phone number. Your new number comes with an inbox for SMS and texting. This means you can actually manage your text list from your computer and an app on your phone. You can schedule text to send at certain times and to certain groups. You can even set up auto replies or let your assistant or customer service team answer your text messages via Community's awesome dashboard. Just go to community.com and ask for a free demo. They'll show you how it works and get you your number. It's time to start texting your audience versus just posting on social media. Everyone uses Community for that. So go check them out at community.com. I can tell you it's not just great for communicating with my audience, but Chris and I use Community and our texts to also sell out our launches. I'm telling you, you get such an incredible response because you really are creating a true, deep sense of community, and it's so intimate. It's freaking amazing. Go check it out at community.com.